Hello and welcome to this webinar on Collect Credit Management for Infor SunSystems. This session is focused on Collect version 6. Collect is designed and built by Professional Advantage. Professional Advantage are the largest global Infor SunSystems development partner and specialise in producing solutions that work in and around the outside of SunSystems to provide specialised functionality where required. As with all Professional Advantage solutions, Collect works with all versions of SunSystems that are currently supported and provides a consistent upgrade path with SunSystems as you move forward with new versions of the core solution. Collect is a comprehensive credit management solution. It is designed to automate and streamline your credit control to improve on productivity and to bring immediate cost benefit to your business through enhanced communication and recording of that communication with your debtors. It also allows information to be surfaced to your debt management user through better reporting and on-screen inquiry. Collect offers a number of key benefits. Firstly, it is fully integrated with SunSystems, and all debtor account information and transactional information is made available through the Collect interface. It reduces the cash cycle and improves your cash flow through enhancing communications and allowing them to be recorded in the form of notes within the system, which can then lead to action and to-do lists. Obviously, by bringing money to your bank sooner, it increases your working capital and it reduces long-term overdue amounts. Reduction in debtor days means better money in your bank, and obviously the reporting around this allows you to understand this position in a very structured fashion. The system helps to record a continuous thread of communication with your customer in terms of notes, but also allows for structured communication on an outgoing basis, such as the generation and dispatch of statements and the generation and dispatch of letters where required. Collect is fully multi-currency enabled and picks up currency codes and rates directly from SunSystems transactions in the background. One key element of functionality is the use of search sets. Search sets are the ability within the system for a user on the fly or for administrators to define a set of parameters that will return lists of accounts or transactions that need to be actioned. An example would be a customer listing showing percentage over credit limit or aging of those transactions. Search sets are a great inquiry tool, but they also can be used to push those transactions through to other more structural actions, such as the generation of a statement or a letter where required. Within Collect, we can produce different documents, and multiple document formats are possible depending on business unit or business stream, etc. Document formats take the form of statements or letters. Statements can be designed to meet your requirement with logos, etc. as required, and letters can be generated at different levels, such as a reminder letter or a legal letter, depending on the situation. These letters are designed in Microsoft Word, and data can be pushed into them using a mail merge from the Collect functionality. The system offers the ability to distribute statements and letters through email, and this can be done using the email addresses held within SunSystems at the debtor level. Account allocation can be carried out from within Collect. This means that payments and invoices can be matched together and allocated in the same way as you would from within the core SunSystems account allocation functionality. The allocation functionality within Collect means that you don't have to jump out of the system to perform standard tasks. Collect offers a one-stop shop for all debtor management activity. One of the key features of Collect is the use of to-do lists. Users in the system can set up actions against a particular debtor, and these actions can then be reflected into a user diary where they can be viewed based on category, based on action type, etc. This means that when people come into the office in the morning and they look at their action list, they are always presented with the actions that they've already pre-arranged with debtors, and these can be taken before any other actions are looked at further on in the day. One of the important areas around debtor management is the ability to ensure consistent communications and ensure that we understand what was committed to from a user or from a debtor. The user action diaries within Collect help with this functionality. The system allows for the management of unlimited contacts against a debtor account, and these contacts are set up and managed directly within SunSystems. Any actions or notes can be assigned to a particular contact so that this can be viewed and easily understood at a later point. When we create a note within the system or an action, there is the ability to attach documents to that note. And additionally, we can attach transactions to the document. So we could be talking about a note related to a particular account, but also a note related to particular transactions, and this is easily visible and understood within the system. Payment planning is something that Collect can assist with. Within the account allocation function, a credit controller can split transactions to provide for installments or dates where people want to pay over a period of time. You can also decide that you wish to pay something over a number of weeks or months, etc., and the system can automatically split the transaction and base the due dates of these splits in SunSystems in the right place, depending on the way that payment plan has been organised. Within Collect, we are able to group debtor accounts together into a national account management structure. This can be done using the account analysis within SunSystems to group certain debtor accounts under a heading. When we have applied this grouping, we can then view it in Collect as one account, even though there are multiple underlying debtor accounts. This means that you can see the full debtor position across all of the debtor accounts, even if they are associated to one national account. Collect can be deployed either as a client-rich interface directly onto a user PC, or through a remote desktop or terminal server type connection, and under the new version, Collect 6, we are also able to deploy this over the web as a web-based interface available through Internet Explorer. The system has an easy-to-use interface, making it intuitive for users, and it also allows quite comprehensive drill down to transactions, charting and reporting, and much more depending on the requirement. Going forward, we're going to look at a demonstration of Collect and run through some of these key features we've discussed and explain the interface to you in more detail. Before I do this, here is a user comment based on people who have been using Collect for some time. We are now going to take a look at the functionality of Collect 6. When we log into the system, a typical point to start is the Workbench. Workbench offers summary information around an account and also various actions that we can carry out in relation to that account. The first thing we would do is go and fill in an account code. When we hit the drop down, this will show us a list of all the available debtor account codes that exist within SunSystems. This is a live feed, so when you add a new account into Sun, it will immediately become available within this list. It is part of the core integration of Collect to the SunSystems database. We're going to have a look at account 64001 European Guidance Systems. When I choose this account, it will immediately bring up a list of all the notes that have been entered against the account historically. You can see in this list that the notes are color-coded. The color coding is based on the action type. So when I create a note, I can assign an action type to it, and this will then lead to the color. In this case, you can see, for example, that the phone action is actually giving me a green item. Actions in the system are entirely customizable. In this case, I have things such as follow-up, letter generation, phone call, etc. But whatever actions support your current debtor process can be set up within the system. When I look at this list, we're currently looking at all open notes. These are things that have not been actioned and maybe still exist within my to-do list. When we have done an action, we can actually set it as done within the system and then archive it to remove it into history. So for an example, this one here, we have a letter. I wish to say that this has been done. I wish to archive it. To do this, I would click up here onto the top bar and say done, and then if I wish to remove it from the list, I can click archive. We can also do this for multiples at the same time by highlighting them, clicking done, and going archive. This means that the list is always kept up to date and only shows the current existing actions. You can see in here that around a note we have a note number, we can see the account name and the account detail, we see the action date and the date of the note, and with the action code and any detail that has been entered into the note. In order to create a new note, I could go up and click New, or I could edit an existing note by clicking Edit. Notes that I don't want, I can delete. I can also copy them where required. I'm going to create a new note. Creating a new note within the system is generally an action that occurs when I'm talking to the customer or when something has happened that I wish to record. In this case, looking at it, the default contact for the account as held in SunSystems is Simon Telford. However, if there are multiple contacts held within Sun, I can go and choose to use one of these contacts as the communication person. I'm going to record an action. From my action list, it is actually a follow-up action I wish to record. You can see here that it automatically records who I am. This is my user, PAS. But as a debtor administrator, I could actually go and reassign notes and actions to different people within the system. Over on the right hand side, it automatically is recorded that this note was created today, and I can record an action date. This is the date that will drive the action in my to-do list. So for example, I'm talking to Simon today about his debt, and I'm going to record a follow-up action to re-communicate with him tomorrow. I can also record promise dates. This is the date at which the client may have said they're going to do something. By recording promise dates, then we can start to report on missed promises, or indeed fulfilled promises over time in the reporting functionality. I'm going to set a promise date for today, and I'm going to have a follow-up action for tomorrow. This will then appear in my to-do list as an action I need to take tomorrow. For my note, I could use the default that's appeared here for the description based on my action being a follow-up. However, I'm going to record a particular action. Having recorded my detail, I can then go and save the note. This will then appear in my action for tomorrow, and I can see what I've said I'm going to do, and it will make sure that I carry out this action and ensure Simon's compliance to his promises. As part of recording a note, I can also do a number of other things. Firstly, I could actually attach a document to this. So if I wanted to attach a document, I can click on the paperclip on the top bar, go and browse to wherever that document is held within my file system, and associate it to the note. This then forms part of the audit trail. Maybe it's a letter that they've sent to us, or perhaps it's a letter we've sent to them, etc. Notes can be used to attach any type of documents, and this can easily be done for emails as well. So for an example, if I wanted to record an email in here, I could drag the email directly in from my Outlook environment, drop it into this area, and then click the attach function. This would then associate that email to the note, and when I open that from within Collect, it would then open Outlook to show me the email attachment. This is standard functionality when using Microsoft Exchange and Outlook. However, any document type could be associated as well. Hide the attachments. Another option I could look at here is to associate some transactions to this particular note. Notes can be held at account level, such as this one, talking generally about the account. However, it may be useful to be able to see the detail of particular invoices that I'm discussing within the note body and in the background. To do this, I can go into the Attach Transactions tab, and at the bottom of the screen we then see a list of all the transactions that are currently open and unallocated within the debtor account of SunSystems. I can choose any of these transactions, one or many. In this case I will choose a couple, and then I can say Attach to Note. This will then move them into the top of the screen, and they then become associated to the note, and if I look at the note body, we then see that the transaction itself has been listed within here. We do not have to show transactions in the note body if you do not wish to do so. I can also see that when I save the note, it will then tell me that there are a number of transactions associated to it over time. Additionally, within the note, we can also do things such as having a look at other details within here as part of standard Workbench functionality. So if I go back to my listing, I can see that I've got my new note at the top here. Simon said he will pay the invoice today. I can then go and use the other Workbench functionality to see details around the account. So for an example, I could go and see a list of all the transactions in the account. I could also go and see the account details, things such as account balance within Sun, the credit limit, etc., and any analysis codes that have been associated to the account in the background. These analysis codes, such as account analysis or debtor analysis, typically are used to group the accounts together for various purposes. In my example, I could maybe look at the account manager of the actual transactions in the system. Normally, you would change analysis codes such as this within the SunSystems itself. However, as part of Collect functionality, you can actually go and edit the analysis codes against an account and reassociate them as required during the debt management process. Moving along, we can also see contact information within here. Typically it will show the default contact that has been associated to the account within SunSystems, although if there were multiple contacts set up within Sun, I could go and choose and look at those contacts. Contacts are managed within the SunSystems data itself. By showing contact information, I could obviously go and make a call to Simon in this case. I could also go and email him if I wanted to. The system does allow for me to send emails directly or in review to this particular customer. When we're looking at a note, the email functionality at the top can be useful. I'm able to send this note directly to the contact in question. So if I associate this to Simon Telford, I could then send an email to Simon using his contact information to show the details of what I've recorded. So for an example, if I save the note, I could then go email in review, and this would then show me the note detail and it would send it directly to Simon. This means that when I'm communicating with him, I can confirm what I've recorded and help to make sure that there is compliance to the agreements we've made. If I want to see other information around the account, I can move across into the customer detail area. This shows me things such as the payment method, the payment terms, etc. held within Sun. I'm also able to see within here aging and statistics around it. So if I have a look at the statistics for this particular account, we can see year-to-date invoices, period-to-date, etc. We can see the date of the last invoice and how many days it is outstanding, etc. And moving down to the bottom, some things such as days since oldest invoice, average days to pay, day sales outstanding, etc. All of this is important information to be able to see around the account, but also important in communication I may have to make my communication effective and for me to know what I'm talking about easily. If we look at the aging tab, this shows me information around the aging of the account. So for an example, if I choose a particular aging date, it would then show me all of the open transactions currently sitting within SunSystems and break them down into a number of custom aging bands. The system allows us for us to define as many aging bands as you require to meet your debt management process. The system will break down all transactions into the account into those aging bands as needed based on their due date or transaction date. We can see this in both a grid form and in a graphical form. If we look at the graphical form, we are able to change the type of diagram being used. So for example, I could use stacked area, maybe a pie chart, etc. And we can also customize the axes and the coding that's used around these graphs. Graphical information is always useful in terms of making something simple to understand internally and also in reporting. If we move over to the grid, we can drill down into these transactions that sit at any particular band. So if we look at this one where we have over 120 days due, when I click on this, it will actually allow me to drill in the right hand side of the screen into the transactions of SunSystems that make up that particular balance at that aging band. So here we have a list of all the transactions that make up that 752,000 debt. When we look at the transactions, what we're seeing is information directly from the SunSystems ledger. You can see all of the standard ledger fields, and as we move across, you can see this includes virtually every ledger field that may be possible within a journal. Within the grid, we can edit the columns that we wish to see, and this includes both journal information but also account information, so I could bring things such as account type, address detail, etc. onto my grid if needed. Within the grid, standard functionality allows me to move columns around if needed. I can also group columns, so for example I could group by journal type or maybe even by period and have subgrouping as well. Within the grid, I am able to, if I wish to, save off the transactions into an Excel spreadsheet or a text file, etc. I can also print them out. When we look at transactions in the grid, we have a number of functions that we could apply to those transactions. So running along the top here, we can see the details of the transaction in a form. So this is drilling down to the very deepest level within SunSystems, and we can see all of the journal fields, including journal extension fields. We can see additional details such as extended description fields and date fields. We've also got analysis and account information. Where there are assets associated to a journal, asset codes would also appear. Other options within the grid allow me to move into allocation and splitting of transactions. I will show these to you as we move into that area of the system later. If I look at the listing of the notes again, we have now covered all of the functionality that would normally be available to you within the Workbench screen. Workbench is a very flexible option for most users. As a result of creating this note, we have now created an action for me to follow up on tomorrow in my to-do list based on the note we just created. We will now have a look at the action codes and my calendar to see how this appears to you on a day-to-day basis. In order to action my to-do list, I will move along the tabs at the top of the screen and have a look at To-Do. When we go in here, there are a number of ways of viewing my to-do actions. First of all, I can look at them by action type. if you can look at this list here, we see that we have different action types to find, and we can see the number of outstanding actions that are sitting there that have not been archived and are still needing to be looked at. You can see that for follow-ups, I have 5 of these. By clicking on that list, I'm then able to drill into a list of all of those follow-ups and where they sit within my calendar. You can see that some of them are ones I've entered recently, and some of them are previous ones that I haven't yet completed and archived. Another way of looking at this, if we went back to the to-do list, would be to examine it by date or by user. If we have a look at the user tab, this shows me actions by user within Collect. So you can see that most of my actions are being performed by the user PAS. I have 10 of them, and I have a number set up by the user Sun, which is 158. Again, I can drill into the action list to see these actions. The other way of looking at it is based on calendar. Calendar is the way most people start their day. When they come into the calendar, they're able to see actions that are set up for them to take as a result of notes they have previously entered the system. You can see here that as a result of the action I just entered, for tomorrow, 25th of July, we can see that there are customer follow-ups, 2 of them. They're color-coded based on the color coding for that particular action type. If we look at the calendar, I can filter it by user. This is good for administrators. I can also filter it by action. So for example, I may wish to see only follow-ups or only phone calls, etc. I can also show multiple calendars within here in terms of date, and I can also change the action type for overdue items. So, for example, if there are actions I didn't follow up yesterday because potentially I was ill, I could go and change the date to follow up to be the 25th and say change the action date. This would then move all of those potential old actions into today's date if they have not been archived. Looking at the list, I have 2 follow-ups for today. This is a very good starting point when I come in the morning. When I drill into this, you can see that I have 2 actions to follow up. Both of them are for European guidance systems. So these are entered actions, they're both for today, they're all to do with following up for Simon and conversation I previously had. If I drill into those notes, I can see the detail, any attached transactions, any attachments, and anything else I may have added to that particular note. This could now be a trigger for me to initiate a phone call to this contact, and I can go into the contact details to see that, and then follow up with further actions as needed. If I go back to my user list, I can see running along the top here the ability to see actions in relation to the to-do. So here I'm looking at users, here I'm looking at dates, but I can still go and see a listing of notes, listing of the individual notes, attached transactions, account details, etc. So this is similar functionality to the Workbench in that it allows me to surface as much information about the account to me at this point as I feel is needed. One of the things we may wish to do when we're looking at an account as part of maybe managing an action for the day or maybe just examining something in Workbench is to send out a statement to that particular debtor. Statements can be generated by the system as a batch, maybe timed for running out at the middle of the night or something along those lines, maybe at the end of the month, or they could be sent out on demand by clicking on a single button. So for an example, if I'm looking at this account, I've got some information here, I decide I wish to send out a statement. At the top of the screen we have a statement button, and this allows me to do so. The same functionality is actually available from Workbench. So if I'm looking at account 64001 in Workbench, I could again go and click the statement button. If I do that, we will first of all get a set of parameters appearing. These parameters allow me to control details and information that will appear on the statement. For an example, we can decide on how it's ordered, we can decide on account ranges, and you can see in this case it's defaulted my 64001 account. We can include contact information if we wish, change the contact, and of course fill in other parameters around transactional information, allocations, analysis, etc. All of this means we can filter what will appear within the particular statement. Statement formats can be designed in the background. In this case I'm using a report template that we already have designed as part of the system implementation. In order to generate the report, I could either preview it on screen, print it off, save it, or maybe email it directly to that customer. This is a very typical situation. Maybe while I'm talking to the debtor, I wish to send them a statement and say, have you got this statement? Do you see the information I'm talking about? This means that I have a very effective communication. If I do this, what I'm going to do for this today is actually show you a preview. This particular format is something that we have as part of the standards implementation. However, we can design this to look and feel any way you may require as part of your individual implementation. That can include logos, layout, etc. Virtually any information around SunSystems data, collector data, etc. can be brought onto this document as needed. When we're looking at a report within the Collect viewer, we can actually export this to Word, we can take it out to Excel, to HTML files, text files, we can email it directly as needed. Statement generation is just one of the key details when it comes to generation of outgoing transactions from the system. Additionally to statements, we can also generate letters, and letters can be reminder letters at different levels, and the system will work out when a letter at a particular level is required based on the way it is being configured. In this way, transactions may need to go through letter 1, then letter 2, before it gets to legal, etc., depending on the requirements that you have. We are now going to have a look at the find function. Find is another tab at the top of the screen, and this allows us to go and find information within the system and within SunSystems in terms of meeting your day-to-day inquiry needs. We can fill in all of these parameters here to return data. So for example, I can fill in an account code range, maybe based on name. I can fill in transaction references, amounts and dates, address details, contact information, analysis information. When I go search, it will then return a list of all the accounts that meet that criteria, and then by looking at the account I could go and drill into the information in relation to it. So in this case I've gone into the account details for 64005 Independent Aviation, and I can see notes, I can see transactions, and all of the other information that we are looking at already in the workbench and the to-do list. Find is quite a powerful tool for day-to-day inquiry. Another more structural function within the system is search sets. Search sets are a way of formalizing searching, allowing us to set up predefined parameters for returning information around accounts and transactions that we may then wish to use in various ways. When we go into the Search Set tab, we are able to see within here search sets that have already been set up and made available to me by the administrator, and these I can use on a day-to-day basis to return information as required. I'm also able to run ad hoc search sets as a user. This is something where I'm defining the parameters and returning information based on my own requirements, and these could vary on a day-to-day basis. If we have a look at search sets, in here I have a couple already set up. One is ACL, above credit limit by 10%, and one is letter level 1. This is a search set that has been defined for generating transactions based on them being required to be placed on a level 1 letter and having that letter dispatched. One of the key elements of search sets is the information returned by them can then be passed on to formal functionality, such as letter generation or statement generation. I will come to this in a little while. If we have a look at an ad hoc search set, when I go in here I can fill in parameters as needed. So for example, I have account ranges, account types, I can fill in information such as above credit limit by amount or by percentage and ranges of this. I also have various other parameters that I can look at by extending these little plus buttons here. As I go down, I can use analysis, priority codes, customer analysis dimensions, journal types, allocation, etc. And this also includes things such as aging criteria, where I can choose from existing aging bands or set up my own custom aging band. And a very nice functionality is the ability to choose based on notes criteria. This is where I can start to return information based on the notes that have already been associated to the transactions. So for example, I could extract a list of accounts and transactions only where certain action codes in the form of notes have been associated to them over time, maybe where they're between certain action dates or relative dates plus or minus a certain number of days, promise dates, and if those notes have been done or not done. In this way, I could answer questions such as return all transactions to me where they are 10% over credit limit and where there have been follow-ups associated to them that have not been done over the last 2 weeks and where promise dates exist within a relative date range of 2 months. This means that we can have very granular and detailed return of search set criteria transactions. In this case, I'm going to return a very basic set of information. So for an example, I'm going to choose a range of accounts within the system, and as I go down here I'm not going to fill in any other transactions other than saying maybe over 121 days. When I then run the search set, This will then go off and perform a search, and then move on to viewing the search set results, depending on what it finds. Once it's completed the search, these results are then displayed to me in a grid for me to action. Search set performance in Collect has been improved greatly in Collect version 6. Once we return the search set results, I'm then able to drill down into the account, or indeed drill into the transactions, and then take actions based on those transactions. The screen displays various bits of information in a split display. If I bring this down, this one here I will bring up, what we can see at the top of the screen is a list of the accounts that meet my search set criteria. So in this case it has only returned one account, 6401. This is the account we were looking at earlier. It gives me a summary bit of information. We can see the number of transactions that actually meet the criteria, the sum of the amount of those transactions, and a very summary piece of contact information for me to talk to him. So for an example, if I'd already carried out my day-to-day actions based on my calendar, the next thing I may wish to do is to run a search set that then shows me of a list of accounts where they have now crept over 30 days due, and hence they form my target list for the rest of the day. In this case, my target list has only brought back account 6401. When we move down the screen, we can then see information about the account in the same form as we saw in Workbench. So we can see notes associated to this account. We can see transactions, aging, customer details, etc. This means that we have a very easy surfacing of information that I can use in a number of different ways. If there were multiple accounts in this list, by clicking down the list I would then show that account information below. If I then want to regard this as a hit list, I would start at the top of my list, look at the information, maybe look at the transactions associated, and then decide perhaps I want to create a new note and move on dealing with that, generating actions for my next day, etc. Search sets are very powerful in this way. If we go back to search sets, looking at the standard ones that we already have defined, your administrator may wish to set up search sets that are already there to provide information to you without you having to fill in the parameters. So for example, this one, above credit limit by 10%, is a standard. By clicking on it, this then provides me with information around what this will return. However, I am not in a position to edit the parameters. It is purely something done by the administrator. When I run the search set, it goes and does exactly the same thing as an ad hoc search set. However, I have not actually had to fill in the detail. In this case, the ad hoc search set returned one account list, whereas my search set for everybody above 10% above credit limit gives me a list of multiple accounts that I could click down and have a look at, and then go on to action as needed. Along the top, I can view transactions, account details, or go and process actions or update search. With search sets, the results that are generated every time you run one are held within the system. This is new functionality within Collect version 6. Historically, Collect search sets were an ad hoc thing. Once they were run and closed, you could not see the results again. Whereas in Collect version 6, we can see search set results that you've previously generated. So you can see that it shows me here when it was finished and when it was run. These are held here until they're removed from the system by choice. This is a big benefit, since old search sets may be useful in terms of not having to go and fill in parameters again, or maybe where you're still working on a list and it was something you generated a few days ago. Search sets also have a secondary functionality within the system. The results of a search set can be passed on to what we call process actions. Process actions are things within the system, such as the generation of letters and statements. This is where we want to produce batches of these documents. So for an example, the results of a search set could lead to generating a statement for every account that has appeared in the result set. Looking at this one here, we can see that I have a number of different accounts. If I actually wanted to send a statement out for each of these accounts now as a batch, I could click the process action function at the top of the screen. If I click the process action, this then allows me to choose what action I wish to take. We have an ad hoc function to decide if we're going to send maybe statements or letters on the fly, or we can choose predefined actions that are set up already within the system with various parameters. I have one here for letter generation, and I have one here for monthly statement generation. I'm going to choose the statement generation action. When I do this, it returns a set of parameters that are set up around that particular action. and I can decide how I wish this to be done. So for an example, I can choose if I'm going to generate a letter or generate a statement. In this case, it's set up appearingly to generate a statement. So when I remove this one, you can see I have a little box that means there is detail actually filled in the generate statement action. When I extend this, you can see I've ticked the box saying generate statement based on the following settings. The statement issue date can be today, or it can be a relative date range today, month, week, etc. And I can add a comment to the statement when it goes out. I can choose which report template I'm going to use. This is the document we looked at earlier. And I can also decide whether or not I wish to show any parameters before generating the statement. Once I've decided how I'm going to generate the statement based on my search set results, I can then move down and have a look at the dispatch methodology. In most cases, we would dispatch statements by email as attachments. The email address for the debtor is grabbed directly from the SunSystems detail. We can decide to CC statements internally or externally, depending, and we can set up a note body and a note subject that will appear in my email. When the system attaches statements to my email, you can see that I can have them attached as zipped, or unattached, or even not attached to the letter. I can also send test emails from here. Additionally, my dispatch method could be printing. I can decide whether or not they're going to be printed, and if they are going to be printed, which printer I will use and where they're going to go in terms of ordering, etc. when I print them out. One of the new functionalities of Collect 6 is we also offer a new thing called PA document storage. This is where documents generated by the system can be pushed into a document storage area within the database so that they can be viewed historically as part of attached notes within the system. I can decide whether or not I wish to send generated statements and letters into the document storage area. When I generate a statement batch, one of the things I may wish to do is create a note on the account to indicate that I have sent a statement, or indeed a letter if that was my action, out to that particular customer. In order to do that, I can tick here the create initial note and then decide what the action that will be associated to that note is. I have an action set up saying statement sent to customer. I can then decide when the action will be associated to the account. Probably today is the best option if I'm about to generate the statements. I can also attach any transactions that appear on the statement to that particular note, and I can set the note status to be done if I wish. Typically, systems generated actions are already done, and hence I would use that option. More importantly, however, perhaps I want a follow-up note. This could be something I plan to do next week. So every time we send a statement, potentially the week after, I wish to ring them and say, did you get the statement? How are you going with the payment? So to do that, I can say create follow-up note. I can give it an action, follow-up in this case, and maybe what I want to do is 1 week relative to the original generation of the statement. I wish to assign it to a category, maybe to a contact, etc. And my comment here could be follow-up on statement dispatch. When I'm ready to go, all I need to do at the top of the button screen is to say run. This will generate statements for all of the accounts that appeared in my search set results. You can see that we've now got multiple options within the progress bar. We've already performed the search in the results set. We are now performing the process, which is the generation of those statements. Statement generation and email may take a while, depending on how many statements there are and the performance of the system. You can see that the blue arrow moves along to indicate how far it's got through the search set. It is now complete. When I close this, we can see that it's now telling me what those actions were. So we have a number of different options, and it gives me the history of all of the processed and unprocessed search sets. So you can see here that we have history of my PAS ACL search set, when it was run, how it was completed, etc. And then for processed search sets, we can see that it was completed successfully in terms of sending out letters or statements, etc. This is all part of the audit trail now available within Collect 6. This is new functionality that was not available in earlier versions. I can also go and see originally the search set results that I had, and of course action them again if needed. Batch functionality within Collect can be managed on an ad hoc basis, as I've just done with those statements, or they can be scheduled. So for an example, this letter level 1 sent could be something that I run every month at 2 in the morning on the 31st of the month, or the 30th of the month, depending. There is a system called Scheduler. This comes with Collect and allows me to schedule search sets to occur at any time. So I may wish to have a situation where all of my letters and all of my statements are generated at a particular point in time and all notes associated as needed. This would then be done based on the schedule without any user action. I could also schedule the generation every morning of a new list of all accounts above credit limit, etc. if required. Scheduler is part of the core functionality. Letter generation from the system is carried out in the same way as statement generation. However, letters are designed and built within Word rather than being a PDF document that's created by the system. If we have a look at the search set defined in here for letter level 1 generation, when I go run, this will actually run through the search set process, returning a result set, and then bring me to the list of actions. In this case, I have a number of accounts. When I go process actions, you'll see that it takes me to the same predefined set of action detail. However, instead of using the generate statement function, we are now using the generate letter function. In generate letters, we choose a word template, and this template has been set up with all the relevant wording that you wish to use for the letter that you are going to dispatch. If we have a look at the document in question in this case, I'm going to be looking at a standard letter that comes with Collect. If I go and drill down into the detail of that, here we have a 30-day overdue letter, although the system does include a number of different templates you may wish to use. If we have a look at this letter, and I'm just going to open it in Word, this will show me the text that we have set up in here. The text can be anything you wish. So for example, here it's saying please forward your payment to immediately or contact our administrator, etc. This could be your own wording with your own signatures, your own details. However, Collect can easily push into the letter details from the Collect system and from SunSystems. So you can see here that when we generate the letter, it would push in the account name, the contact detail and address detail. Moving down, we can see it's bringing in the total amount owing, maybe a list of transactions, account name, percentage overdue, things like that. So this is in effect a form of mail merge where Collect is populating into the template the detail that is required. In order to do this, we provide a list of the merge fields that you may use. If we have a look at the detail here, we have quite a comprehensive list of different information that you can decide to bring into a letter that has been generated by Collect. We're always adding to this list as we go through various releases of Collect and various service packs. Once we've chosen the letter and the template we're going to use, we would then decide if it's going to be created as a Word document or a text document, etc. And we can also include transactions from the search if needed. Dispatch methodology via email or via printing, etc. is exactly the same as that which we discussed for statements. Moving down, with a letter there are some extra things we may wish to do. When we create the note against the account when we generate the letter, we may actually decide that we wish to assign some extra information, such as an allocation code against the document. This allocation code allows us to allocate transactions that are included in the letter in the SunSystems ledger. The allocation code then can be used to generate further letters based on requirements. So for example, when we create letter level 1, which could be a reminder letter, the system can allocate all transactions that were included on that letter with an allocation marker. This could be one of the SunSystems unbalanced allocation markers, such as 1 to 9. Allocation marker 1 then means that that transaction has been included on the first level letter. When we then come to generate the second level letter, which could be a more detailed reminder or potentially moving up to legal, etc., we would only include transactions on that letter that have already been allocated with a level 1 allocation marker. This will be set up as part of the parameters for returning the search set. In this way, we can escalate letters over time. So at the end of the month, you could have the system run an automated letter generation run overnight, and it would generate all level 1 letters, level 2 letters, level 3 letters, etc. And you can be sure that only transactions that were required will be pushed onto those letters. The system is very good at this functionality, and it's just a matter of setting up the search sets and the escalation processes as part of the implementation. We are now going to take a look at account allocation. This can be done from a number of areas in the system, however one of the obvious areas is the workbench. When we go into an account, we can have a look at transactions associated to the account. This is a list of all the transactions that sit within the debtor account in SunSystems, and we can view unallocated, allocated or all transactions. From the grid, should we wish to perform some account allocation, we can do this by choosing a transaction within here and then going and deciding what transaction we wish to allocate against it. This can be done for one or indeed many transactions. In order to allocate, at the top of the screen we have an allocation function. When I go and click this, the system will move us into the allocation screen. In the allocation screen, at the top we see the transactions I've chosen. At the bottom we see other transactions within the account. In order to allocate these transactions against any from here, I can choose the ones I wish to allocate, one or indeed many, and then I can use the allocate function by clicking add. When I click add, it will then allocate them against the top. This needs to balance out in order to be correctly allocated, and the system will not allow you to continue unless it is a balanced allocation. When we close this, the allocation is then complete. The system will allocate the transactions in SunSystems using allocation markers as per the standard SunSystems allocation function. Another thing I can do within these transactions is to split them. This is the same as using the split function for allocation within SunSystems. When I right click, I can go and use the split function, or I can go up here and use the split function on the top bar. When I go split, I choose the details of the split I wish to perform. The details of the original transaction are shown here, and I can decide the number of splits I wish to use. In this case it is saying 2, although I could go and split this across multiple splits. I can choose the first due date for the split, and I can choose the split due date. In this case, what I may want to do is just to do an equal split, or indeed an empty split, if I just wish to split something and then add in details myself. One of the more powerful functionalities is to actually use a payment term split. This allows me to spread payments over a period of time based on the agreement I've made with the customer. What I could do is decide that I wish to split using particular dates, or I could decide to split based on due dates, or indeed a standard split. We provide a number of options here. So for an example, if I decided I wished to split this over a number of weeks, and I wanted to do it over 4 weeks, I could choose the first due date as today, or maybe next week, choose the number and the type of split, and then go equal splits. The system will then take the transaction and split it over that period of time based on the standard allocation of the amount. If it is 4 weeks, it breaks it by 4, etc. And then it would assign a due date based on the weekly payment that you've decided with the customer. When I then close this, transactions in Sun are updated with the split in the normal way. This is quite a useful functionality where you are agreeing payment terms over time. The final area we're going to examine within the system is the reporting function. Within the reporting tab, we have a number of different reports that Collect can generate by default. These reports are of different types. So for an example, we have aging detail and summary, we have debt recovery analysis, we have DSO analysis, and various other things that are important in debt management. If we have a look at the aging summary report, we fill in parameters as we would with a statement. Parameters include important information such as transactions, allocations, analysis codes, etc. Once I've decided the parameters of the report, I can then generate the report and show it on screen, or print it out as needed. I'm going to generate a report for one account, 64001. If I preview the report, it will then go off and show me the standard report that is available within Collect. This report, as you can see, breaks down account information by transaction, shows you invoice references, dates, it shows you amounts and due terms and payment terms and percentage overdue. If there are any notes and actions associated to a transaction, we can also include these within the report. All reports within Collect can be amended using the report designer to bring on different fields and change their layout if needed. This will be done as part of an implementation upon design. Reports can be sent out in Word, Excel or PDF format, and they can also be printed off or emailed directly from here. If we have a look at some of the other reports, a debt recovery analysis is quite an interesting one. This allows me to see a summary of information around the account. Again, I'm going to choose to look at the 64001 account, and when I run the report, it will then show me a breakdown of some summary information that can be useful for maybe an account meeting, general discussion or internal usage. You can see here it's showing me account information including contact information, credit limit, status, payment terms, etc. We can see the aging of the current account, showing you information as to the aging bands and the percentage that sit within those bands, and also the number of invoices that sit within each of the aging bands. Going down, the invoices are summarized, and we can see notes that are associated in relation to this account. So we can see a history of the communications that have occurred against the account over time. We can also see who has entered those actions into the system, and the percentage of the number of actions that are actually related to particular action codes. Debt recovery analysis, I find personally, is a very useful report. Another option within here could be trend analysis or DSO analysis. DSO is debtor sales outstanding, and this is a important KPI when it comes to debtor management. One of the functions that the system allows is to show trend analysis over time, and this is important when you're looking at DSO. In order to do this, we have a function that allows us to take a summary snapshot of the account at any point in time, and these can then be chosen to be included as part of your DSO analysis. We can choose to include these based on a custom selection, or maybe most recent, weekly, fortnightly, etc. In this case, I could choose all of my various statistical runs in the background. I choose my account code, or indeed multiple account codes, and when I run the report, we would have the result set generated. You can see that this is then showing me an analysis of DSO by company, which in SunSystems terms is business unit, and you can see the values and percentage in relation to each of those areas over time. I can also see it broken down by account. DSO analysis is what you make of it depending on how you use this type of reporting within your organisation. In order to set up the statistical analysis over time, we would use the process function within Collect. And here we can do a global update, which will update our analysis, where we can give it a name that we will use in our reporting, or indeed we can do account analysis dimension understanding over a global period of time. Process is used on a periodic basis, typically by administrators. So, reporting within the system is a very useful function, although we can also report using the standard SunSystems reporting tools, such as Q&A. This allows us to generate reports in Excel directly from SunSystems information, but we can also include information coming from Collect, such as notes in those type of reports. So typically, users use a mixture of reporting directly from Collect and also from Q&A, or indeed SunSystems, where reporting in that area is more important. Another useful report could be the note list report. This allows us to generate listings of notes around an account. This is good for internal meetings or discussion. In general, Collect is a very powerful tool for analysis of your debtor information, managing of actions, and managing of bulk activities such as statement and letter generation. Collect is a very popular tool around the SunSystems user base, and for most people who need to manage debt and using SunSystems, it is the tool of choice. Should you require any further information on Infor SunSystems Collect debtor management, please contact your Infor SunSystems support partner, who will be happy to help you, or alternatively you may contact Professional Advantage directly for further information at our website www.professionaladvantage.co.uk, or call us on the number below. Thank you for your time.